Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book from Sweet and Maxwell THOMSON REUTERS. It's a high quality first class book, been known to some people but not everyone. It's called the Crown Court Index 2019. It's now in its 39th edition. It's currently being edited and written by His Honour Judge Mark Lucraft, Queen's Counsel, and Thomas Payne. And Judge Lucraft will be known to many of you through Archbold. I've given a title for our book review the following: A Practitioner Book for the Criminal Lawyer Which Deserves More Prominence. And I say that because I wonder how many people actually know of the existence of this book. They've probably heard about it, but they've probably not had much of a look at it. It's in the Inns of Court libraries, and you should be able to see it around. There it is. There's the front of it. There's the spine. And then there's the back. And let me explain right at the beginning how it operates, because what you've got is an index of titles at the front, A to Z, starting off with absent, unrepresented, accused. So you've got tables, abbreviations and so forth, and it goes all the way through to chapter 77, or part 77, youth rehabilitation orders, and then an index at the back. If we go to the back, there's a very nice diary. Always helpful to have that little calendar, diary of dates. Then right at the back you've got a very short index, really. Not quite the same sort of index you would normally expect with a Sweet and Maxwell type of publication. It doesn't follow their standard house principles, but you can see the way it is. And right at the back you've got chapter 77, which I mentioned, which is on youth rehabilitation orders. And remember, the actual index is at the front, because this is a working book, if I can put it that way. There's the front page there, and that bit there, which you can see. Then there's you can see the actual information, and there is a very useful statement forward from Nicholas Hilliard, who's a Recorder of London, which I'll refer to in a few minutes. Then there's a preface from the editors, and it states what the law is. I'll deal with that in a minute too. Then there's a table of abbreviations. A lot of abbreviations in this area, mainly the legislation, of course, and a lot of other things. You can see how much of it there is. Then you've got, after that, the table of cases. Again, quite a large number of cases. And after that, tables of statutes. And then after that, just get to the end of that, you've got statutory instruments, of course, which come into it as well. Then you've got the criminal procedure rules. You're not going to escape lightly. You're going to get those as well. Very detailed. Then after that, we get into the actual specifics. And this is part number 1, which is the absent, unrepresented, accused. You see how it's structured. You've got a little index for the part. Then you have definitions, and you have paragraph numbering at the side. So you should be able to find things pretty easily. Obviously, there's a lot of reference to both judicial thinking, commentary and case law, and of course the statutes. And just remember what I said right at the beginning, that's the index right at the front. And that's how it runs through, all the way through. Deportation is about halfway through, and so on. It runs to just over 1,000 pages odd. And as I've said, I mentioned in my heading that I do think this book should have more prominence. I can remember when I was doing my bar exam some years ago now, I didn't really know much about this book at all. I did see it around, but I never really looked at it, and I think it's become of more significance in recent years, especially with the dawn of the criminal procedure rules and the big changes that have taken place. And of course now we are much more specialised in what we do. So what do we say about the book? Well, sadly this book is not as well known as it should be to many criminal law practitioners, even though it first appeared in 1964 when the last hangings took place. That got your attention. Things have changed markedly since 1964. Modern day practitioners find the annual Crown Court Index a fundamental point for legal research today. Now I say that because it's very important, I think, to know what the judge is seeing and what information they've got, because when you are actually dealing with any case, you've got Archbold, you've got all of the help, Blackstone perhaps, but you need to have some indication of what the judge actually has, because again, it's always useful to be on the same wavelength, and that's why this book is something that you should know about and have some familiarity with. Of course, as practitioners, we're very lucky to have this book during a period in history when the criminal justice process as a whole has become more and more complex, as I indicated. You do have the criminal procedure rules now, which again is a challenge in its own way, because they are effectively codifying the law in a way we haven't had before. Obviously, as a result, the process itself has become more complex, bulky, and frankly user-unfriendly to many. And this is why I think books of this nature are so helpful. So we thank Sweetin, Maxwell and Thomson Reuters very much for continuing to provide counsel and the judiciary with this A to Z guide to common to common penalties and formalities in cases tried on indictment or committed for sentence to the Crown Court, as well, of course, as appeals in criminal proceedings. In fact, what you've got here is just the ticket as a companion to Archbold, also, of course, edited by Lucraft, who is probably one of the most experienced professionals in the business at the present time. I mean, I'd say that as a thank you more than anything else, because clearly he will have a very, very detailed knowledge of where we are going. Now, the 2019 text has been extensively updated to reflect developments throughout the last 12 months. So do begin the work by reading the foreword from the Recorder of London, His Honour Judge Nicholas Hilliard, who comments that we are all dealing with cases through the digital case system, and we're encouraged to work on screen. Now, again, that I think is a tremendous step forward, but it does bring a few problems with it. Not just for older people like me who are not quite so familiar with some of the more modern approaches, but also that we are reliant on the computer. Nonetheless, Hilliard concludes that I know that many of us find it invaluable to have a hard copy of the index to help us with all the awkward issues that arise. He's absolutely spot on, because we must have both digital and hard copies available to be as well informed as possible. Because frankly, I find it difficult to flit around on the computer when I've got the book in front of me, and I can then wedge, when I'm looking at the book, I can wedge one page there with something else I might wish to cover, which is much more difficult to do if I've got an e-book or a digital. So it does obviously assist. Now, Hilliard also offers us an observation that each case we are instructed on, quote, will present its own particular problems to be resolved, whether it's a murder case or a burglary, but every case will benefit from the concise summaries and checklists which the index gives us. Absolutely right, and very helpful it is too, because with criminal law, some people think it's quite easy. I didn't. I thought it was it's a hard subject to teach. It's a hard subject to understand, because there are lots and lots of different exceptions dealing with specific, minute circumstances. And so you do have to have the overview, but you have to have a detail of what is actually happening today. Now, what the index offers us is a logical piece of advice to a range of readers, providing invaluable assistance to the busy judge, to the recorder, and to the practitioner. The editors have included all the additions and amendments to the criminal procedure rules and the criminal practice directions, together with the legislative changes introduced in the last 12 months. So they're all in one place. You've obviously got the companion with Archbold and so forth, but this is the index itself, and it's quite quick to go through. They also set out the key decisions from the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, which makes the index a must-have publication for energetic members of the criminal bar. And I say that because clearly that's what you've got to have today. And we remain very fortunate in our view to have this annual title available to help us understand the complexities of modern criminal practice. So thank you to Sweetin Maxwell, and of course to His Honour Judge Lucraft, Thomas Payne, and all the other people involved in this work. The 2019 edition was published on the 11th of December 2018, and the law is stated, unless otherwise indicated, as at the 1st of October 2018, the beginning of the law year. Let's just have one last look at the book. There it is, the front, then the spine, and then the back. You can't really see much on the back. It's as usual, there's some stuff, but it's very difficult to read from here. Just opening it in the middle, it's a heavy book, as I say, over 1,000 pages. Driving disqualifications, here we go. A lot of information there. You've got the index at the beginning, then you go through the general introduction and looking at the lengths of disqualification for the various offences. And it's looking at the guidelines, of course, throughout situations where disqualification must arise, endorsements and so forth, and then conditional and absolute discharges. And, of course, all the detail you need, including, of course, case law and the statutes, Road Traffic Act in this case, where appropriate. Finally, thank you very much to everybody concerned for this work, and we will look eagerly at Crown Court Index 2020 to see what has happened in the next 12 months. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.